Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm going to do another orchid for you today, a different one to the ones I've done in the past. It's probably one that some people may not have seen. It depends on how much you know about orchids and how interested you are in them. If you're an orchid collector, then you probably will have seen it before. It's called an Oncidium orchid. So this is the orchid that I've got that's in bloom at the moment, and this is the one that I'm going to replicate. So because I haven't got any cutters for this particular orchid, I'm going to improvise. So I'll take you down to my board. Right, so the cutters that I'm going to use here are two daisy cutters. These are out of a set that I've got from Framar Cutters. If you've got a sugarcraft shop in your area that does Framar, then if you try and get them from there. There are some other ones on the market that are daisy cutters, but they're not as big as this. I'm just looking to see if I've got some here. I did have some in with them. I don't know what I've done with them anyway. And the other cutter that I'm going to use is a simple leaf cutter. I think out of the set this was the second largest one out of the smaller set. So this is the next to the bottom one. Is one that's smaller than this one. I'm going to use this for doing the throat. Now I've got some here that I've already made up in sugar. So I'm going to use this cutter to make the throat, but I need to alter that a bit more to make the throat. And then I'm going to use the daisy cutters to do the sepals and lateral sepals and that on here. So the first thing that we need to do is to make the column, which, like most orchids, are all very similar. The difference between the different kinds of orchids is the size of the column in that particular orchid. So that obviously is going to be done freehand. So I've got some yellow paste here that I've made up, and to colour the paste I've used egg yellow from Colour Flare, or anything that's like that. You want something that's going to colour your paste the colour of an egg yolk, so you want a stronger yellow rather than a paler like the melon or daffodil. Right, so I needed a tiny little bit of paste here. So that's about as much as I need there, that I've got there in my hand. So I'm going to roll that into a ball. Now this is one of the occasions where you can't put a hook on your wire because of it being so small. I'll just put that away and wrap that up for now. So for all of these things I'm using a 28 gauge white wire for this. So you'll need your glue. And I'm going to start off by starting to roll it into a slight cone, but I don't want to go too far with it because I need to get it down onto the wire to thin it down. So a bit of glue on the end of your wire, in the end of your paste there, and then between your two first fingers roll the bottom down onto the wire like that. Try to keep it fairly small. You don't want it big because it's quite a small orchid is this. And then for the end of it, something that's got a rounded end, I'm using my veining tool to do this. The reason for that is because even the smallest ball tool is too big for this. So I'm just going to put that into the top there just to hollow that out, and then we can put that to one side to dry, so that can be stood up in some foam. I'm just going to get rid of my glue for a minute because we don't need that just now. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make the throat and the sepals. I'm only going to do one of each for the simple reason I want to try and make it a bit shorter video, because the last one that I did, the poppies, that was Jubilee Rose was a hell of a long video, and some people might have got a bit bored through the middle of that. So I thought I'd find something that I can do that's not going to take quite as long and probably not have you falling asleep to it. So I'll just get the paste working and softened up, ready to roll out. So we'll get some white fat to go on my board. Just get rid of that out of the way. Pop that up there. So I'm going to do this all in one go with all the different pieces that I need to make. So I'll just move those wires out of the way for a minute. You can go on there. Now the sepals on this are quite fleshy on this. For a small orchid, they're not very thin, aren't the sepals on it, so you don't have to have your paste quite as thin. So I'm just going to roll enough out so I can cut out one of each, because I've already got all my bits and pieces already made and dried. So I'll roll that out like that. Then I'm going to use my groove rolling pin. There it is. Get a groove up the centre. Always remember, if you're doing grooves in your paste, you want to be slightly thicker than the finished product, because otherwise you're not going to get a groove in it with the thin part on the outside. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out one of each of these petals. So I need that to be at the top. Hang on, put it right way around. So you want your point in line with your groove, and then the bottom in the middle. Cut that one out. Then we'll cut a smaller one out. This one's a bit awkward because with it being small it can rock over. It was doing that to me when I was doing my bits and pieces. There we are, got that. And then we want one for the throat. So I'll take my paste away from there. But you're not doing one of each when you do it. If you do this orchid, you want 2 of the smaller ones, 3 of the larger ones, and then 1 of these per flower. I'll just take that out. There we are. So 3 of the larger ones, 2 of the smaller ones, and 1 of the throat one. Get rid of that for now. I will need that paste a bit in a bit because we've got a bit more to do, but we'll get these sorted out first of all. So I'll start off with my throat. So a 28 gauge wire into your groove like that, and I've got it virtually nearly to the top. Just pop that to one side, and then we'll do the petals. Now for these I'm not going to try and thin the edges, because trying to thin something so thin is virtually impossible, and we're not using a veiner for them, because if there is any veining in it you can't see it. Of course you'll have to take my word for it, because it's very difficult to show you that on camera. So that goes into there, and then the larger one. Try and get your wires to go as far up your petal as you can. My wires come out on that one. I'm going to do that one again. Like I said before, for anybody watching the first time, if anything goes wrong, I don't cut it out, because these things are sent to triers and they can happen where things do go wrong. So I need to cut out another long petal, because that was the one that decided not to behave itself. There's my groove drawing pin. Oh, there it is. Right under my nose as usual when I can't find anything. I'm sure we've all gone through that when you're looking for something and you look everywhere and you can't find where it is. And then when it does turn up, usually when you're not looking for it, it's right under your nose. Right, so a larger petal. Where's me? There it is. Just get that one out of there. See if it's going to behave itself this time. When I was doing my bits and pieces ready for the video, everything went perfectly. Which is typical, because when you're on camera or you're doing a live demonstration of that, that's when things start going wrong. Oops, dropped the wire. Should have some more wires somewhere. One there. That'll do. Always get it between your finger and your first finger and your thumb, so you can feel what's happening to the wire. If it comes out, you can feel it, and just gently feel it going up just a little bit at a time, and gradually moving your finger up as you do, so you can feel where it is. Right, there we are. So I'm going to deal with the petals first, because I don't want them to dry out yet. So as I say, it's very difficult to thin these at the edges, so what I do is I get it between my finger and my thumb like that and just give it a bit of a squash. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn it over onto the plain side, and then I'm going to curve the petal up like that. So it's going to curve round like that, and then that's going to go onto my bobble foam. Just have to move some things out of the way. I've already got a lot of oops, just dropped one. I've already got a load of petals already made on here and dried, so then just pop it into your foam like that and just leave it to dry. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the smaller one. Get it on your thumb, between your finger and your thumb, and pull your wire up and just gently shape it up like that. Then put that into your foam. I'll put those two at the top, then I know those aren't dry. Just get rid of that bit of paste there for now. Now then, the throat part of the orchid, I've got a cell stick here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to elongate that. So if you get that at the bottom, then just roll it to stretch that part of the throat like that. Okay, and then what you need to do then is you need to curve it over. Now it's not quite as straightforward as that on the real flower, but to get it exactly the same shape as the actual flower is very difficult. But we want to get it so the top, this is the top, and that's going to curve down rather than up like you do with some orchids, and then that wants to go into your foam upside down. So then whoops, that's dried like that. So this is the underside, and that's the up top side where it's gone down like that. Right, the next bit that needs to go on there, I'm going to get that back in a minute. I just need to get this stuck on, so I need a tiny piece of paste, and I mean tiny, about the size of a pinhead. Roll that into a bit of a sausage like that. Just pop that on my board. Then get your throat that you've just made, leave that upside down, and then what I'm going to do is get my glue. Excuse me, my throat's going a little bit croaky there. A little bit of glue just there, so I'm just using the side of my brush, so I'm virtually touching it. You don't want to get too much glue on, and then get something with a sharp edge. Hang on, let's have a look. That'll do. So I'm just going to use, hang on, got something stuck on my, so what I'm going to do is go in sideways like that and make a little dip in it, so you're virtually separating it. Then get your petal, put your finger underneath it, and then just drop that onto there like that. So just make sure that's stuck on, and then that needs to go to dry now with that on. Right, so once you've done that and you've got all your bits and pieces dried, then we can go on to the next stage. So I'll just get all my pieces. I've got two to make up here. I've left two of them, so I can go through it twice. So that's a throat that's dried and another throat that's dried. Now at this point, if you want, you can start colouring everything before you put everything together. So I have already got some kitchen roll here with the colours on that I want to use for this orchid. Now then, if you look at the orchid itself, you can see that the throat part there is sort of more yellow, and then the side petals are more of a sort of a slightly yellowy orangey colour. So what I've done is I've mixed some orange, and I've used I think that's nasturtium or something on there, and then I've mixed some sunflower in with it to make it a paler colour. So I've got a colour in between because I couldn't find a colour that was just the colour that I wanted it to be. So if I get my petals, so I want 3 of those, and 3 for the other part. That's 3 there, 3 there, and 2 small ones there to go with that one, and 2 small ones to go with that one, and then we've got a throat each. That's a dry, not a dry one. I've got them out there. Right, so I'm going to start off with the yellow, which I'm going to dust onto the throat part here, just very gently. And then I can go on to the, just have a look at my flowers to see what I've done. Right, so then I'm going to go into the orangey colour now, get that onto my brush, and then I'm just going to catch this little piece here. This is where the bees go for the pollen, in this central bit here. So just very gently get your brush on and get some orange on, just onto that bit. You don't want it to be on the throat, just on that central piece. And then with all of the petals that you've got, then brush them all over this orangey mixture, back and front. As I say, there are different varieties of this kind of orchid as well. I mean, I was looking in one of Alan Dunn's books, and he's got an Encyclia in there. It's a different one to this one, but that one's sort of like a pinky one, so you do get lots of different varieties of these kind of orchids. Unlike some flowers, you're not doing a lighter colour on the back. It's the same colour on both sides of the sepals and lateral sepals. And if you want to get into all the bits and pieces, then like Alan does in his books, you've got sepals and petals and throats and ovaries and all sorts of different parts of flowers. But I'm getting old, I can't always remember that, so excuse me if I don't get the right terminology there. That's done, that's done, that's done. So we've just got this one to do. And they don't have to be perfect, these, and like I keep saying, there's nothing perfect in nature. Bugs get petals and things and all sorts of things like that. If you want to be realistic, you can go to an awful lot of trouble and spend a lot of time, especially if you're entering competitions. That's when you start getting down to all these little details. And as I said earlier on in a different video, last time I went to Cake International here in the UK, a lot of people have gone to the trouble of making flowers look as though they were dying. And I think that is more difficult than trying to make a flower that looks alive, judging by the amount of work they put into it. It's really clever how they've done it. I mean, it's not something I would want on a cake or anything like that, but there again, somebody might. Right. Now before I put any more detail into these, I'm going to put the flowers together and then I can add the details, because you need to see where the petals are when you're doing this. So I'll just get rid of that brush out of the way. And I'll get some, I want some Nile green tape. There's my Nile green. I'll just cut some tape. I'm just going to tilt the camera up a bit more this way so you can see what I'm doing when I get to this part. This is where in some of my earlier videos I've gone out of shot when I've been doing it, because like I keep saying to people, it's very difficult for me to watch what the camera's watching and watch the work that I'm doing at the same time. But like most people, I'm learning. I'm used to teaching people face to face, you see, that's the difference. And of course in a classroom situation is a lot different to doing it on a camera. Right, so for anybody that hasn't watched before, this is a gem tool. If you can find anybody that stocks gem that have these, this comes in really handy when you're cutting your tape. So what I've done is taken two of the blades out. They're just normal razor blades that are in it, so you get a lot of wear out of them, because when they get sticky with the glue in your tape, you can just turn them over and turn them round. You get about 4 uses out of one blade. So if you've taken 2 out, then you've got another 2 spare ones as well to do. They last forever. I can't remember the last time I bought any blades, it's been that long. Right, so the only bit that I haven't done is, again, just get my brush again. I'm just going to dust this because I forgot to dust the throat. So this is dusted with the orange as well. That's one. and that's the other one. So we've got those. Quite a cheap orchid to do is this. If you've got these cutters in your arsenal, then there you are. So with the throat one, I'm going to get the wire, get my finger underneath the thing and pull the wire down so that it's at an angle like that. Okay. Now you can either start the tape off on your column or on the throat and push that up so it's right underneath there, like that. I'm just going to pull this up a little bit for the time being until I've wired in my piece, because I don't want to break anything. Bring that in with your hollowed out facing towards the throat petal, and that's just turned round. You need to get your tape started before you can adjust how it goes. Right, so I'm just going to turn that round, bring that round there, like that. Then I can start to tape down. You just need to, this is where you need to tape down, because once you've taped it down and you've got everything in place, it'll stay put, but you might have to alter it a few times just to get it as you want it. And the reason for taping down is that any other pieces that you add to this then are going to grip better. Probably not move around quite as much. Your first part is the hardest part. There we are. Got ya. There we are. So that's the first part of the orchid. So get your tape and start your tape off again. Just see which is the sticky side. That's the sticky side, so we'll turn that over and get that round the top like that. Get in with your nail and nip that in so that that's attached, and then roll between your finger and thumb. That's it. Right, so first petals that go in are your 3 large petals. This is the same technique with all orchids, irrespective of which orchid you're doing. And remember that it's going to curve inwards, so we need to bend your wire down. So, oops, dropped it. Where are we? That's not the one. That's the one. So that's what you're looking for. Curved petal up. So that's going to go into the side like that. Now once we get these in, we can adjust them where we want them to be. For the time being, it's just a matter of taping them in, and I can have that as my central one and put that there like that. Doesn't matter which way you put it in. And then get your wire and pull it down so it's right down to your tape. That will stop it from moving around. Then get your next petal and again bend it down, and that one's going to go into the side. That's moved round a bit. Let's readjust that. So that's going to go underneath that petal there, like that, to the back. And then the central one. I did start off at the central one, but that one moved, so that went to the side. Then if we tape down a little bit, while we've still got the wire showing, we can make sure we pull them all in. There we are. And then you can adjust where you want your petals to be, the position you want them to be in. Like that. Then I can tape down to the bottom. so they'll stay put now. So then we start the tape off again up the top. Make sure it's right up underneath your petals, and I've got that the wrong way around, so it's not sticking. That's better. And then get your two smaller side petals, and they go in between the two you've just put in, like that. So they virtually sit on top of the other petals that you've put in, and then tape down. Make sure those are pulled in nice and tight. And I can get hold of the wire. There we are. And tape down. So now you can have a look at your orchid now and adjust all your bits and pieces that are in there to make sure everything's, and bring your throat down a little bit like that, and adjust your petals. So that's the sort of shape you're looking for. So I'll just pop that to one side, and I'm going to do that again with the next one. So I'm going to do it twice just to go through all the details again. So I started off with the throat this time with the tape on, with the column, sorry, I beg your pardon, and then your throat goes in facing that. Whoops, and I've just lost my column off. So obviously I haven't put enough glue on there, so I'm just going to have to be very careful with this. I'm just going to put a bit of glue on the end. This is what I mean about things going wrong, you know. Some of the people, when they're doing demonstrations, don't cut things out. They cut things out and then you can't see how to repair it if they do that. Into the hole, back onto the wire. There we are. Just have to be a little bit careful with this now to make sure that don't come off again. And by gum, it's behaving itself. It's staying where it's supposed to stay. Who's a good boy or a good girl or whatever? Right, so again, start your tape off near your top. Just pull that throat bit up there and get that up. There we are. So we can put in side petals. Now I've made 4 of these orchids for this spray because looking at the actual plant itself, it's got 2 spikes on it and they've both got 4 flowers on each. So I'm following what it's actually doing in nature. But I'm sure sometimes when you get spikes on it that you might end up with more or less flowers on. You could end up with 3 on, you could end up with 5 on. I know we generally do things in odd numbers, but on this particular spike that I'm doing, I'm copying exactly what the actual flower's done. So we can bring those round, twist that round, comes round to the middle, and that goes round to there, like that. So that's the first 3 petals in. So then we can put in the 2 smaller ones. in general, on a lot of varieties of orchids, this petal I'm putting in here now is generally wider on some varieties, but it depends what kind of orchid you're doing really, because they're all different. But if you can manage to either get a very good picture of whatever it is that you're doing, or if you manage to get hold of the actual flower itself. I mean, I've got quite a few orchids, so I can copy them. I've done one or two of them. I did the Xylopetalum, which I've got on my channel, which had the real flower, and Dendrobiums, Cymbidiums, and all the rest. Right, so that's taped down. So once you've got that together, then I can put in the other detail. And I needed to put it together so that I could see where I was going to do the next, because the next detail is going to be painted on. Let's get rid of that. So I've got some brown powder here that I'm going to use to do the detail. Now I've already got some in the lid because I've already done some painting on some of the other ones. So if you have a look at these orchids I've got here that I've finished, you can see where I've got little bits of detail in it. And they do tend to vary from flower to flower. They're not all exactly the same, so you don't have to do them all exactly the same. When I find my brush that I've done it with somewhere. It was here. Probably hiding underneath something. Right, now drop something else on the floor. I have to get another brush. I want a very fine, fairly fine brush for this. I'm pretty sure that it was a green handle brush that I used for that. There it is. I knew it'd be hiding under something. Here we are. Not sure what size this is. Has it got it on it? No. This is a different make to the ones I usually make, and the ones I usually use are the sable brushes, and they do have the size on each of the brush, so they go anything from 4 knots up to whatever. But when it comes to painting, you want a decent brush. The artificial ones, the cheaper ones, are no good because they're not right. I use these shot things for putting my colour into. Right, so the details on these little side petals, the two smaller ones, you don't have to be too neat with this, because they're not neat dots on them. The detail you get on these sort of orchids are and I'm just going to do a little bit on either side on the throat part there. So that's that one done. Just need a little bit more isopropyl in there. If you haven't got isopropyl, you can use vodka or gin or any white spirit if you've got it. If you can't use alcohol, then you need to get hold of the isopropyl. Some have more spots on than others. Put a little bit more on that, so we'll make that a little bit different. Right, so we can put that to one side. The advantage with doing it using your lid as a palette, when you finish with it, if you just leave it to let it dry out again, then you can use it again. You can always reconstitute it. I hate waste, and that's one thing where you don't want to be wasting your colour if you can, because you're only using tiny little bits. And somewhere, there it is, I've got my bottle of isopropyl that I keep just for cleaning my brushes. So clean your brush in there. There we are. Brown's off that. You don't have to throw it away when you've done it. You just keep it and use it over and over again until it gets so mucky you can't do anything with it. But it does keep for quite a long time just doing that. Right, so to put it together now. So I'm just going to bring the actual flower over again. So if you can see one of these spikes here, if you can see that, you've got a spike going up there, and then you've got these spikes coming off the side then, alternately going different ways. So that's what we're going to do. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a stronger wire to start that off on. Have I got one in here? I think I've got a wire here that I can use. Yeah, that's a bit strong. I think that's a 22 gauge or something like that. Just something just to give you a little bit of extra support. So what we need to do is to start off the tape right at the wrong side again. You can always tell when you've got the wrong side because the sticky side will stick to your finger if you've got it the wrong way around. You want that facing your wire. That's better. Get that right to the top, and then I can put in my first orchid. Now I'm just going to bring the real flower over. I'm just going to get rid of these pots out of the way so I can get rid of this kitchen roll with the colour on it out of the way, so I can bring the flower across. I can actually see what I'm doing right that way. So if I just put, where's me orchid gone? There's me. I'm just going to put that to one side so I can see what I'm doing here. I'm trying not to block your view while I'm doing this. So this is why they tell you in competitions, if you have the real flower to hand, you can mimic it better. So I've started it leaving about that much of the orchid stem above the wire, come down, and then I want to bend another wire out. So they go that way around with the throat down, so I'm just going to bring that round to this side here. I'm going to pull that down a bit further, make that a little bit shorter. And then I'm going to put another one in. Where are they? There. Just bring these others over. And that one wants to go that way out. I can come round there like that. Just move that out of the way now, so I've already got myself all ready. I know which ways what's going where, and bring that in down further down there like that. And then you can adjust your orchids once you get them taped in. Bring that one out that way. So bring it out and then just bring it up like that and just bend it up a little bit. So there we are, my Encyclia Orchid. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and you come back and see me in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and if you've got any comments about anything, then leave them in the section below, and any ideas you've got of anything that you'd like to see me demonstrate, especially anything if you're having difficulty with something and it's not in my videos, because I have a lot of videos on my channel, then send me a message and let me know, and I'll try and fit it in. If it's something that I haven't done before, I love having a go at doing different things. So there we are. So take care, see you soon, and stay safe.